In today's video, we're going to talk about my predictions for the zero point 0.4 patch, some of my concerns with it, and a few ideas that GGG might be able to just jot down to have some success in the future. Let's dive into it. What's up, y'all? It's your boy Mighty Mouth here, back with another video. I apologize, I am still sick, but as my past self already said, we're going to be talking about my predictions and stuff like that. So, let's dive into it. My prediction for the class diversity is probably somewhere, if you include like the Chinese realm, probably a 35% to 40% Pathfinder, another 30% Druid, and then I would say the third highest ascendancy picked is probably going to be Titan in the beginning. But, as the league progresses, people are going to be finding interactions that work with the Druid skills that are probably better. But with my guess, if you're playing bear form, you're probably going to be wanting to go Titan or Smithikatava. That's just how it is. But I would say Pathfinder, the Ranger class, still dominates the meta. Lightning Arrow is still going to be as strong as it's ever been. Like, I'm sure you guys have seen the patch notes. They got a small, well, it's a pretty decent nerf in the end game, like the mid to late end game and the very late end game. But most people who are playing Lightning Arrow are not dropping lightning rods and then using tornado shot and barrage and all that. Most people are just dropping lightning rods and just spamming lightning arrow. So you really won't, if that's what you're doing, you're not even going to be affected in the slightest by any of the changes. So if you've seen that and we're like, oh my god, we've been nerfed to the ground, bros, like that's just not the case. You're still going to be decimating all content. But the Pathfinder had some very important changes. You can now start from 3 different locations. So you can start in the Warriors, you can start in the Sorcerer's side, or you can start in the Ranger side. And you still, on top of being able to pick where you start, you get extra passive points. And then you also get the choice to change your attribute points into increased damage, defenses, or cost efficiency, which is going to be huge. So let's say you are playing Lightning Arrow, you get enough dex to use all of your gear and skills, you get enough int to use some of the other gear and maybe a skill or two that you might need, and then any extra point that you have, you could just stack damage, or if you're running low on mana frequently, cost efficiency, or if you just wanted to be really tanky, defenses. And with a couple of rolls of attributes on your gear, you really don't need that many attribute points, because you're not going to be stacking intelligence for pure power anymore. So what do you need that for? So with the change to pure power, they, I guess, calibrated that like, fuck it, they're not going to want attributes anyway, so let's just make it OP in a different way. We'll just take attributes away and give them damage. But seriously, Pathfinder going to be extraordinarily strong. You can also sprint without having to worry about being stunned, which is huge, because you already basically didn't have to worry about being stunned while sprinting with evasion builds if you had high enough evasion. Most of the time, if you were going to get picked off by like a singular pack, that you would evade most of the time. But if you're doing bear form, I think Titan is going to be your number one choice. Aftershocks and things of that nature, it scales really well in the warrior side with fire damage. Smithikatava also scales really well with fire damage, and a lot of the ascendancy nodes for Smithikatava I think synergize well. I'm not going to get into all the theory crafting that I've done. I'm not really going to give away any of of those secrets or anything like that, you can check other content creators. They can talk about it at length. I'm just trying to make a quick video to get something out before this thing drops. So the Druid, though I thought a lot of their ascendancy nodes were interesting and unique. They were like hands down some of the most interesting and unique nodes that I've seen, like electing not to take a charm slot and getting spirit, getting 130 extra passives to choose from. Things of that nature were really dope, but they didn't really speak to shapeshifting. So the main draw of a druid is shapeshifting. So if you're going to do that, I can imagine you might try the druid, but a lot of people, for efficiency's sake, just they will not start something that they can't build a POB and plan out a pathing and everything for. And since they know nothing about the passive tree and really don't know how the skills scale or anything like that, they're probably going to league start something they're familiar with. Example, ED Contagion, uh, Lightning Arrow, maybe just like your typical mace builds, shield ability builds, stuff like that, and then transfer into the shapeshifting later. But we'll see. Maybe people will try to be a little bit more adventurous. Now, a concern that I have is going to be crafting in this league. And while they've made leaps and bounds with the essences and things of that nature and the tiered currency, removing the omen of homogenizing coronation and exaltation is going to lead to having to craft like this. So you're going to have to find a decent base, and if it's already rare, annul everything off and just get to blast and chaos at it. So once you get a roll of something that you want, then you would have to div that roll. We got pretty close to a perfect roll in the first div, which you're going to be okay with. And then you throw a couple exalts at it. You put your desecration on so it's something that it cannot fracture. And then you just fracture it. And you hope to God you hit the armor. We didn't. So now what do? You just throw a couple exalts in it and pray. We got thorns and we got a percent armor. That would be a decent starting shield. Now, I don't exactly have a representation of how you would craft from a white base, but it's the same basic premise as it's always been. Perfect transmutation, perfect augmentation, and then if there's an essence that you could throw on it to make it decent, you would hit it with that essence, and then you would desecrate whichever prefix or suffix you were looking for and try and fracture the most important mod. But a lot of the essence that you can use aren't exactly going to be like high tiers. So it's not really going to be the same luck of the draw as it was last league. So you're going to have to spend a lot more currency in this upcoming league in order to get a good craft out of it. I'm not saying it's going to be impossible, it's just going to be a whole lot harder. Now, if you've been crafting in PoE 2 up till now, you're going to be fine. You might be broke until you sell some of them, but you're going to be fine. Now, other concerns that I have are completely underlooked support gems and lineage gems that got no love, but a lot of the other support gems that people do use got tweaked. And the whole point of, balance is to try and create incentives to use the less used things. But like Jonathan said in an interview, we don't necessarily just look at data and look for outliers and make decisions based on those outliers, because you maybe they just didn't find that this goes well with this and this, so if we buff it, it's just going to be lightning spear all over again. But with Corrupting Cry 1 is the same damage. Corrupting Cry 2 is the same damage. The Corrupting Cry lineage gem, like Pocket, Pact, or whatever it is, same damage. Like, it's all the same damage. But if you look at any other fucking support gem, if there's tiers to it and a lineage gem, the damage numbers change. Something changes. It incentivizes you to use the next fucking tier. But there is absolutely nothing in that incentivizes you to use it. Not only that, there's no way to scale the level of your Warcry skills to really make Warcries itself a build, so you have to use Corrupting Cry in order to really deal damage with Warcries, and there's no way to scale its damage other than basically your passive tree, your jewels, and strength. So it would be cool maybe to get the lineage gem to just up the ante a little bit. So instead of doing 25% of your strength and draining 2% of your max life, how about it does 25% of your strength, drains 2% of your max life, and it gives the same percentage of your max life as damage. So while you're draining that percent of life, you're inflicting that same amount of damage on something, so that it actually makes sense as to why you would want to do the same amount of damage but put a gigantic downside on it. Like, no one wants to do the same and have a negative. They would like to do more and have a negative. But I digress. I could talk about this for days. Another really big concern for me are the patch notes are like ever evolving. They're just post after post after post, and it's been this way for the past couple leagues. Like, they drop the patch notes, and then they're still making changes up until the day of launch, and that it doesn't feel good. Like, it doesn't give me this sense of security that everything is going to be great when they put a halt on the end game rework in order to get the druid done, and then they dropped the patch notes. They did some testing. It's like, wow, some of these skills don't even fucking scale into the end game. We have to buff them already, even though we spent all of our time testing and coding these specific things. We still didn't have enough time to actually test the skills to see if they scale. We finally did that 2 days before the patch launches, and we realized, while these wolves suck, this thing sucks, we gotta buff it. I'm glad they're doing it, but it's just like, man, it really speaks to how hard these guys are working and how much pressure they're under. I feel for them. I sympathize for them. I wish them the best. But just as a consumer, from a consumer's perspective, it does not put me at ease at all that the balance is going to be right. Or, I mean, you're never going to get balance right. Balance is something you can do forever. It's ever changing. But it's worrisome that there's this many changes still coming in the days leading up to the launch. All right, so the last big concern I have are the socketables. You're already limited to what you can put the socketable into, and now you're limited to how many you can use. It's like, oh, I want to make a build that has as much lightning damage as I can. Well, I can only put one flat lightning damage rune in my 4-socketed bow. So what the fuck else do I put in it? Like, I don't know. Or there's only one way to scale my damage, and that is to increase the damage to rare and unique enemies, or gain extra damage as all elements. Well, you can only use one of each of those two. So now you still got two open sockets. What the fuck do you put in it? Like, you added all these, like, oh, exceptional items with increased sockets, and then you get an increased effect of the sockets. So you can have 3 socketed gloves and 3 socketed boots and 3 socketed helmets and fucking 4 socketed armors. But you can only put one of each socketable in it. I mean, other than like iron runes and stuff like that. I just feel like while it's good for the gloves and the boots because it's going to add to build diversity. People aren't just going to be using attack speed and movement speed. It just really dampers a lot of builds that don't really have any other way to scale their damage. And that's something that is concerning to me. While it's not all doom and gloom, I do want to throw that out there. A lot of ascendancies got buffed. The way that the mapping is going to go based on, pack size not scaling or density not scaling, and now it's quantity of items scaling. I don't know how that's going to translate to the drops because you're going to have monsters dropping more loot, but there's going to be less monsters, so maybe the items will be about the same. But on the topic of items, I'm hoping that they changed something with the way ground loot works. Because, in my opinion, if you have tiers to your loot, then those tiers should mean more than just, hey, this has a high tiered roll on it, pick it up, and then you pick it up and it's dog shit. Now, with magic items, it is what it is. If it's a tier 5, it should mean that it's got 2 tier 1 rolls on it or something like that. But I have literally seen untiered magic items that have had a tier 1 prefix and a tier 1 suffix as the only rolls on it. Or a tiara with a perfect roll of tier 1 flat energy shield, and that was the only roll on it, and it wasn't tiered. So I don't know if for it to be considered tiered as a magic item, it has to have 2 rolls, and that's why it's not showing up as a tiered item. But it's pretty misleading. So you can miss out on a lot of good loot or good rolls that you could perhaps exalt slam, maybe get lucky, or take to the recombinator and make something decent because it had that high flat roll to go with the high percent roll that you already had, and you get lucky and you make a good base. But the tiered rares have got to change. They have to. I said in my last video, my suggestion would be to limit the mod pool on the items based on their tier. And I got a little bit of backlash on that. Not necessarily backlash, but just the feeling that GGG would be very reluctant to do that. But hear me out. I'm not saying to limit the mods entirely. I'm just saying if it's an armor and it's a tier 5 body armor, it should have a tier 1 roll of some defensive mod. Evasion energy shield, armor. It has got to fucking have that because it is the most important role. So if it is the highest tier possible, it is the pinnacle of ground loot. If it doesn't have that, then it isn't a tier 5. It's not good. If it doesn't have a tier 1% or a tier 1 flat, it's not worth picking up because it's already rolled. So you don't want tier 1 thorns with tier 1 max life and a tier 1 max life percent evasion energy shield split so that your fucking sleek jacket has a total of 450 evasion and fully upgraded. Like, that's not gonna do it. That's not good enough. So I'm saying you can leave the suffixes, even though accuracy, light radius absolutely blows to get on a weapon that is a high tier. But with the essences, the perfect essence that you can put on it, you have a chance of knocking that off indefinitely. Like, you can just continue to throw essences at it until you knock it off. And but the prefix, it should have at least one desirable prefix. So it should take away the ability for one of those prefixes to roll anything but something good. The other two, fuck it, whatever. But it should have like a tier 3% increased physical damage if it's a mace. I'm not saying it has to be tier 1, but it should have it on there. Because if you pick up a tier 5 rare two-handed mace and it has like tier 4 lightning damage with tier 2 accuracy and tier 1 fizz accuracy split, it's still dog shit. It's unusable. Like, regardless of if the suffixes are trash, I mean, you can't do anything with that. But if it had like a tier 3 increased physical and two dog shit ass mods, at least you could fracture, take a chance, but you can't even fracture a base that doesn't have a desirable mod on it. So you would just throw that away, put it on the ground or sell it to a vendor, and then you pick up another tier 5 and it's the same shit, rinse, lather, repeat over and over and over again. And it just gets monotonous. So they need to change that somehow, some way. Now, for me, I probably won't have to worry about using too good of a weapon because I'm going to be going war cries. I it's still probably not going to work. It's going to probably not be able to kill pinnacle bosses because, like I said, other than corrupting cry, there's really no way to scale your war cry damage because there are no levels to war cry skills. There's none of that unless you get like a desecration of to all skills and then a corruption of to all skills and get 2 to war cries on an amulet, and the odds of that are like 16 billion to 1 that happens, especially on an amulet that also has desirable mods. So Warcry builds are just like, they're pretty hard to get to the end game and like really kill bosses with. Now you could use other skills to kill the bosses and use the war cries to kill the trash mobs, but that's not what I want to do. I want to make a build that is entirely war cries, that is all it uses, and it gets the job done. And I don't care how much currency I have to throw at it. I'm going to play that build and continue upgrading that build until it inevitably just absolutely fails and we threw 1,000 div at it, or it shows marginal progress and the potential to maybe work, and we throw all of our time at it until it either does or doesn't in the end. Now, I don't want to take away from this video to be, oh, this guy's overwhelmingly negative, he hates GGG, because that's not it. It's just I'm focusing on my concerns, and I'm focusing on the direction I think the game is going in. And it's a little concerning based on the timeline. But I know these guys, dude, I love GGG. They're doing everything they can. They're trying to progress 2 games, which I think in the next 4 to 6 months, PoE will be in maintenance mode, and they will have to put their nose to the grindstone to get some serious fucking traction rolling on PoE 2, or March 2027 isn't going to happen. It's not even going to drop. Or if it does, it's going to be missing classes, and Act 6 might not even be done. Fuck, who knows? But there's a lot of work that needs done. And I'm just trying to give constructive criticism. I'm in no way shaming them or saying that what they're doing is wrong. I'm just saying that, in my opinion, things need to change in order for the game to be the best version of itself. Loot is one thing. Ground loot needs to be meaningful again. I'm not saying that it needs to be overpowered. And in my opinion, the homogenizing omens were good. Maybe instead of it guaranteeing a mod, make it a 25% chance or a 40 or 50% chance to give you the same like tagged mod. Then you still have a chance to get it. You have a chance not to. It's not guaranteed, so it's not completely overpowered. While they did say they're disabled, not necessarily removed, but we'll see. And I don't think that it was the right choice to limit every single fucking usable, good, socketable to one per character. Like, that doesn't make sense to me. Life builds, forget about it. Like, that's going to be next to impossible because it's just not. Like, there's not a whole lot of ways to stack it, and there's a lot of changes to uniques and stuff like that. It's going to be rough. It's going to be rough. But we need the direction of the game to go in a rough way so that we can see if it's successful. Because even if it looks bad, if it ends up working, then cool. If it don't, they know what not to do next time. And that's the big thing. A lot of the development of games isn't doing it right. It's doing it wrong so many fucking times that you now take away every possibility of what you shouldn't do, and the only thing left to do is the thing that now makes sense. So I wish them the best. I know they're probably not even going to see this video. They don't give a fuck about what I say, and I'm a nobody. But that being said, hopefully they take some of it into consideration. So, with that, I'm out. You already know what it is. You are enough. Stay blessed. And as always, stay mouthy. Don't forget to like the video, leave me a comment so I can interact with y'all, and subscribe and hit that notification bell for more future videos. We'll see y'all in the next one. Peace.